Annual Virtual Police Forum. My name is Brother Terrence Higgs, and I am honored to be the chairman of our nationally mandated program, Achievement Week. We're coming together for this event to have a discussion amongst law enforcement from various disciplines, as well as the general public. We believe that this is an opportunity to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. Let's face it, no one likes to be pulled over, right? What happens when you get pulled over? What happens when you see those red and blue lights come behind you? Your response could be indicative of how that experience goes for you. So we want to address some of these frequently asked questions, and maybe in some cases, some questions that we don't get an opportunity to ask. And we're honored to have the law enforcement personnel that have taken time out of their work schedules, out of their personal schedules, to facilitate a working relationship with the general public. So I want to thank you all for attending tonight. My hope and my wish is that you find out something that can be beneficial to you and your family and those that you love and care for. I'm going to pass the mic over to our bossalist, Brother Paul Davis.
Thank you, Brother Higgs. Good evening. My name is Paul Davis, and I am the bossalist of Theta Pi chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, located in Vallejo, California. I would like to thank each and every one of you to this evening's second annual police forum. We appreciate the panel for participating in our annual Achievement Week event. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. I will now pass the mic over to Brother Dawood Muhammad.
Good evening, everyone. And once again, thank you for joining us. I'd like to give a history of this organization and Omega Psi Phi. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated was founded November 17th, 1911 by 3 undergraduate students and their faculty advisor. It was the first Black Greek-lettered organization founded on a historically Black college campus, Howard University. Omega Psi Phi's cardinal principles are manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. The Greek letters Omega Psi Phi represent the fraternity's motto: friendship is essential to the soul. Some of our notable members are Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Dr. Charles Drew. From its beginnings, Omega Psi Phi has made itself busy with the work of uplifting the Black community. With more than 750 chapters all over the world, our work is truly global. Theta Pi is the local Solano County chapter of Omega Psi Phi. Theta Pi was chartered July 31st, 1973 by Brothers Fillmore Graham, James E. Brown, and Frank Breaker Jr. The motto of Theta Pi is a reservoir of help to the total community. Over the past year, Theta Pi has served the Solano County community with sock drives, coat drives, voter registration drives, and youth mentoring through the Omega Gents program. Theta Pi members have supported St. Jude Children's Hospital as well as the NAACP. Theta Pi has an annual golf tournament which raises money for the Fillmore Graham Memorial Scholarship Fund. Theta Pi additionally supports the 10 mandated programs of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. First among them is Achievement Week. Achievement Week was originally designed to promote the study of Negro life and history. It was inspired by Dr. Carter G. Woodson in 1920. Achievement Week is observed during the week of Omega Psi Phi's founding in November of each year. It is designed to seek out and give due recognition to the individuals at the local and international levels who have made noteworthy contributions toward improving the quality of life for Black Americans. The theme of Achievement Week this year, 2020, is Omega Psi Phi fraternity, providing uplift to national, local, national, and world communities. I'd like to pass the mic now to Brother Keith Barnes to talk about the purpose.
All right, good evening, everyone. Not only will I just be talking about the purpose, I will be your moderator tonight for the forum. As Brother Higgs mentioned, our purpose is it's an online discussion where people can ask questions. We're going to share experiences and discuss safety issues among us from the community and law enforcement. Again, this is to, kind of not only just help with what we call the encounters, but we're going to learn about daily things that the law enforcement community has, some of the things they experience. And again, this is really one of those where we want to bridge the gap because, the great thing about this forum this year is we have a multitude of disciplines across the law enforcement spectrum here. So it's going to be, unlike last year, we had all police chiefs. This year, we got a multitude of different disciplines in law enforcement agencies. So it's going to be a wider discussion. Some of the topics we're going to talk about high level, and then we'll get into the specific questions are, of course, the do's and don'ts when you get pulled over. That seems to be the one that everybody wants to learn more about. Some of the community, we're going to get some questions about community engagement, also safety and training, and if we have enough time, even staffing. So I'm anxious about what we're getting ready to learn. So if you all are ready, I will introduce the panel. Starting first, representing the city of Vacaville, we have the police chief, Chief Ian Smeltzler. Representing, I'm gonna call them the OGs, my retired friend, frat brother, and retired Vallejo police officer, and that's Brother Arthur Raspberry. We also have representing East Bay Regional PD, Officer Bobby Jefferson. Also, we have representing the San Francisco Police Department, Officer Adrian Starks and Officer Jackie Fuller. And also we have from representing the U.S. Marshal Service, Deputies Alejandro Romero and Deputy T.K. Dorsey. That's our panel tonight. We have some others that did not show up, but if they happen to join, I'll certainly introduce them. So if you all are ready, let's get it going. All right. First question, and again, we're going to probably do questions for about 40 minutes, and then we'll get into we'll open it up for some other questions from online, and then we'll close out. All right, so let's go. All right, since again, the elephant in the room is what happens when you get pulled over. I'm going to start with you, Chief, and then I'll open it up for others if they want to comment. How do you respond when you're pulled over? And as a follow-up, it's, if you want to take on what is it you can or cannot do, and then we'll go from there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Barnes. And let me just say, having an opportunity to meet Pastor Higgs yesterday was a highlight, and I am incredibly humbled and honored to be a part of this forum with this panel, as well as with the members of this incredible organization. It's interesting. Not that I speed often, but I've been pulled over myself, a few times in the 25 years that I've been in law enforcement, and it gets my adrenaline pumping. It gets my heart rate up. It's what I do wrong. You're kind of thinking that initially. And the biggest thing I think when it comes to those types of encounters is observations and communication. And so obviously, for law enforcement, hands are the biggest concern. So with hands on steering wheels, we can see hands. Feet aren't going to necessarily cause any harm to anybody. Legs necessarily aren't going to cause any harm to anybody, but hands are the big thing. So hands on the steering wheel, and then communicating as clearly as possible with whoever has stopped you. And depending on the agency, there's different sort of tactics that come along with traffic stops. Some will flood the interior of the car, if you will, with light, spotlights, takedown lights, high beams. They'll push a bunch of light in that direction, and it's kind of twofold. One is to obviously, to shine light on an area that they're walking up to that they're not necessarily familiar with. And two, it's more difficult for somebody who is in the vehicle to see kind of what's going on behind them. So my best advice is, regardless of the circumstance, if, I frankly, I've been stopped on 680 where I thought I was going relatively with traffic. Wasn't necessarily thrilled with being pulled over, but the main thing is, hands, communication, cooperate, and then especially in today's day and age where nearly every department, especially in California, is going to have some sort of recording of the event, whether it's body worn camera and or dash mounted video. If there's an issue with the stop, if there's a concern about why the stop was made or about the officer's conduct during the stop, you have every opportunity to make that complaint, to bring that concern up to the jurisdiction within which you were stopped, whether it be the highway patrol, a local jurisdiction, a county. And so I would say that's the main thing is hands, communication, and then cooperation first, and then concern for the conduct and the way that the traffic stop took place second, and that keeps everybody safe.
Great, thank you. I'm going to open it up for any of the other panelists. Is there anything you want to add? Something different that you may do differently that wasn't covered with Chief Smutzler? Go ahead, Officer Starks.
Hi there. First, I want to thank you guys for having us. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Kappa Beta Omega Vallejo chapter. So it's an honor to be here with you guys. I appreciate it. And thank you to Officer Buckner. He's the one that got us involved with my partner, Jackie Fuller, down there. I just want to point out, as a patrol officer, I think it's kind of incumbent upon us as officers that when we make the traffic stop, as the chief mentioned, people are going to be nervous. They're going to be trepidatious, with our lights. We do flood the vehicle with our lighting. So one of the things that I know my partner and I, we do, we're cognizant of is when we approach the vehicle, we tell people, hey, put your hands on the steering wheel, because we let them know it's really upon us to educate people. I don't know what you have in your car. For my safety and yours, please put your hands on the steering wheel. And then I let them know why we stopped them. I think as much information as we can share, be as transparent as possible, I think really brings everyone's tension level down. And I think it shows respect on our part that, we're here to do a job. I stopped you because you ran the light, just
you probably have a lot of stops there.
That's what we're here for. You did it. You can go to court and fight it or whatever. But I think it's just, like I said, just for us being aware of how the other person might be feeling during a traffic stop makes all the difference.
Great. And let me go real quick in a kind of a sidestep. We're going to stay with the stop. You see oftentimes, the internet is a wonderful place because you get to see more than you care to see sometimes. And there's always the question about what's the law where as it relates to carrying ID, right? Carrying ID. What's the policy on that? And I'm going to one side step over on this: ID and walking. Who wants to take that? Nobody's gonna take it. I'm gonna be like a professor. I'm gonna call on you, Chief.
Honestly, I've been out of, like, I guess, real police work, if you will, patrol work, for so long, and there are case law changes that take place fairly regularly, but when it comes to ID and Officer Starks, please, if I'm goofy on this, please let me know, because I'm old and it's been a while. but there's not there's no requirement to carry identification. We live in a country and a society where that's not a requirement of law to carry identification. So if you ever have a circumstance where you're ordered to produce ID, again, it's not a law. Now, in terms of walking, the second part of the question, Mr. Barnes, is if you're walking and that's all you're doing is walking, then all an officer can do at that point is what's called a consensual contact, is to walk up to you and maybe engage you in conversation or whatnot. But for them to stop you and to order you to provide identification or identify yourself, that's a detention. And that's a whole nother level. That has to derive from what the law refers to as reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred, is occurring, or is about to occur. And police officers, law enforcement officers have to articulate that in their reports whenever they detain somebody. There has to be something more than just, I see this person walking down the street.
Right.
I want to jump out and detain them. Again, there's a huge difference between a consensual contact of, hey, how are you doing? That type of thing versus, hey, I'm stopping you. You're not free to leave. Provide your identification to me. And so that's where it kind of gets a little bit gray. Right. Is if the officer has observed something that they can articulate as reasonable suspicion and they detain you and want to identify you, then they do have the authority to get your name, date of birth, and that information typically when it's run through the state system, which we call CLETS, California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, that will provide, height, weight, eye color, hair color, things that will be able to, potentially help identify somebody. They can ask for that. But if it's merely you're walking, from your house to the grocery store or from your house to a friend's house and you've been on the sidewalk and there's no chance that any crimes have been committed, it's not lawful for an officer to demand identification.
Right.
I remember as a younger police officer seeing some of the older veteran police officers say, well, you have to have ID. You're required to carry ID in California. And to this day, 25 years later, I've never found that statute that requires me to carry identification. So so that's kind of, I think the sort of the outline of that. And again, if I'm goofy, Officer Starks, please let me know. Because again, it's been a long time since I've actually been out there doing the work. But as far as I recall, that's the current case law.
Awesome. I see Officer Fuller. I'm sorry. Yeah, Officer Fuller has her hand up. So Officer Fuller, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to join. Buckner, thanks for inviting me. I also am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I crossed at Dillard University, the Alpha Beta chapter, and then once I graduated, I then joined Delta Delta Zeta. My partner, Adrian Starks, we work together every night. And I just wanted to make a small comment. Chief, you were absolutely right as far as the consensual encounter when it comes to someone walking, right? Obviously, as police officers, we don't have the right to force anyone to stay and talk to us unless we have some outside knowledge that they're either being detained or arrested. And at that point, they're not free to go. However, if you are operating a motor vehicle within at least the city and county of San Francisco, right, you are required to have your driver's license on you. And in fact, if you don't have it, that is a ticket and could lead up to your car being towed, sometimes an arrest as well. But with that being said, it is also one of those things where it's called either spirit of the law or letter of the law, we do as officers have discretion. Obviously, sometimes people make mistakes, right? They forget their driver's license. We have the capability of checking within our system of whether you have a valid driver's license or not. And so it kind of depends on the officer whether they decide to enforce that action of having your driver's license or not. But just as the chief said, simply walking is not enough to need an ID. But when it comes to driving, you do need your driver's license.
Great, thank you. And also, if some of you haven't seen it, we do have a question answer action here on Zoom. And if you have a question, you're more than welcome to ask that in that question answer, and we'll try to work that in with some of the questions we've already prepared for the event here. But I would say thank you so much, Officer Fuller. All right, let me get someone else. I'm gonna go to another area here. I'm a TV buff, and one of my favorite movies is U.S. Marshals. So everybody know who I'm coming to right now, right? Given what TV and movies show us, this is for Officer Romero and with Officer Romero and Dorsey, right? Deputies Dorsey and Romero. I gotta make sure I'm giving you the right names here. Help us connect the dots, right? Tell us really what U.S. Marshals do, because I think we all kind of walk around with what we think. We saw Tommy Lee Jones chasing Wesley Snipes and Harrison Ford, and stuff like that. So tell us about the U.S. Marshal Service.
So you want to start, Alejandro?
Yeah, I'll start off. Yeah, my name is Deputy Romero. I've been with the Marshal Service for 3 years. And our main function as a U.S. Marshal is to protect federal judges, district judges. And then we have our warrants, which they hit the streets, our task force. You also have prisoner transport. You have JPATs, which is moving inmates from one state to another. And we also have asset forfeiture. And we also have a JSI, that's what Deputy Dorsey is, which is just judicial security.
Wow. Now, see, I bet 99% of the folks that's on this call did not know that about federal judges. I just learned something.
I'm going to add a little bit more to what Deputy Romero said. So we were established in 1789. We were the first law enforcement agency in the United States of America. As Deputy Romero said, we get our authority from the federal court system. So the judges is where we get our authority from the federal judges. From that, we've been tasked a lot of different duties. So like you said, we're in charge of taking care of the judiciary, making sure that judicial process takes place. And that includes from serving warrants to asset forfeiture, where we seize property, be it for IRS or for seizure of goods and things through the court system when they have restitution, along with what we call justice, prisoner, and alien transport. A lot of you know it as Con Air, where we're responsible for transporting federal prisoners as well as state and local when requested around the country. We do extraditions. That will be for any state or local and federal agency that asks us to provide that service. Obviously, everybody's very familiar with our warrant teams, and our warrant teams are basically, this is how we try to explain that. Our warrant teams serve federal warrants, the warrants that come out the courts, but we also assist local and federal agencies when their local and state agencies when their jurisdiction has its limits. So when their limits of their state or their local cities is ended, we pick up from there, and a lot of local agencies and state agencies will call the U.S. Marshal Service, and they will work with us. And when we don't take the case, what we do is we assist them and we make them special deputies. And what we do is we go wherever they need to go in order to apprehend and bring people that are fugitives from justice. So that's really what our role is in the whole law enforcement, as far as helping the police officers and state police officers and other agencies and the federal agencies. We combine a lot of different resources that we have, and we help them apprehend people outside of their jurisdiction.
Awesome. You said something that again kind of kicked me in the head here. I'm going to kind of pull that thread a little bit. You mentioned supporting or helping like local law enforcement. And again, for the other officers and team members here, you can also chime in. How does that happen? How does local go from local to, let's say you guys are a federal agency? How does that happen?
So we actually have a task force here in the city of San Francisco, also in and Oakland. And our task force have members of local police and state police agencies. So we've got California Department of Corrections, San Francisco Police Department. We've got a couple federal agencies along with ATF, immigration, and things like that. But we have those people on our task force, and that allows us to look at the state and federal side and the local side and view the warrants that they have. Now, most agencies know that the U.S. Marshal Service is out there, and if the jurisdiction is an issue for them, a lot of them already know to go ahead and contact the U.S. Marshal Service, and that we will assist them. And like I said, it's an assist. We're not going to take over completely, but we will assist and help further their endeavor in trying to apprehend fugitives.
Awesome. Oh, that's great to know. Hey, you know me, I'm for the group here, I'm all over the place. I just had another wonderful thought here. And this one I'm gonna go for what I believe is the most senior guy on the call. This is for Officer Raspberry, retired. We'll start with you, and also and let's see who else I may want to bring in. I'll start with Brother Raspberry, then we'll bring someone else in. But here's my question for Officer Brother Raspberry. You know, being that you've retired now, and you could tell us when you were with Vallejo PD, share with us some of the good and bad things, the good and the bad, in terms of things that you would like to see improve, and some of the changes and differences you see today that were different when you were on the force or as a new peace officer.
Well, Brother Barnes, let me start out by saying he called me an OG. I'm an OOOG.
OOG, okay.
Okay. I came in to law enforcement in 1973 with the California Highway Patrol.
Ah, awesome.
Okay, and then I worked at the Department of Justice, and then I came into Vallejo PD in 1979.
Yeah, so yeah, that is OO, because that was two other jobs for the first O. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the atmosphere of the department sort of gives you a perspective how your feelings regarding the community, how your feelings and your personal feelings, but you cannot depend on your own feelings. Sometimes you have to use the training that you get into the academy. Because when I first came in, I went to my training officer in Highway Patrol. First thing he said, forget everything you ever learned about the academy. And so I knew that was going to get me hurt. I did that. But back in my day, there was a community. Matter of fact, I was in charge of one of the substations in Vallejo. I had the North District, and I was a sergeant at that time. And my office was right in the center of the neighborhood that we considered the crimes of, especially drugs, shootings, and things like that. So we opened up a little storefront. I got in charge of it, and I had no problem at all. Because what I would do, I would leave my office, I would walk the neighborhood, and I got to know everybody, most of the people in the neighborhood, and they knew me. So I think today's officer, or today's atmosphere of police community, called community policing, has probably faded into the background. Some departments still have community service officers, and which is great. But I believe now that the rate of calls for service, okay? And due to the fact that today's officers or today's departments are really short of uniformed personnel, patrol officers. And so you have to take that in mind. Priority, do you put everybody on the street, or else do you bring officers in, those officers that are qualified to be community police officers? Okay, and those officers who have the inner communication skills that can communicate with the public, no matter if you have a white officer talking to a black neighborhood, a black officer talking to a white neighborhood. You have to take that, not a chance, but take that training that you do have, take the officer who knows why he's there, why he or she is there to do these things. And I believe that's the difference. Because when I came on Vallejo, I think we had 85 officers. When I left there, we had 145. Now they're back down to probably 70 some officers. And I just learned the other day that maybe 2 cars are patrolling the graveyard shift. And that's you're putting everybody in danger, the officers and that. But the atmosphere now regarding police, there was no cameras when I came on. There was no computers. When you went out on the street, you had a yellow ring tablet and a pencil that you had to do reports in. So it's changed, but I think departments are still, especially the old guard, and now the new guard. You have to have officers who are educated, who have life experiences, and the value of those officers.
Got it.
The personal values regarding people of color, of political status, okay, which has really turning this field upside down. I mean, you have officers raiding the United States Capitol. And I was surprised how many that were there. I mean, these active duty police officers.
Yeah.
And you can't have that in a department. I'm sorry, you can't do it.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah, and background checks need to be really, really looked at. Background checks.
Absolutely. Let me do this. I'm going to stay with the community service piece here, community involvement piece here. Officer Jefferson, I'm going to ask you, brainstorming live here. What are some ways you think the community and law enforcement can bridge the gap? That's what Officer Jefferson.
I'm sorry for the camera. I'm on daddy duties right now.
That's okay.
but I'm on multitask. So one of the ways to me that you could be able to bridge the gap is simply just getting out your car, talking to people. I do that all the time. Just get out there and just, hey, because a lot of people, when you make contact with the police, it's always for a bad reason. But switch it up. Change it up. Just get out and just talk to them. Just conversate with people. Let them know that you're human too. I do that all the time, and I get so much respect. And I think that's how you bridge the gap. Because when people, especially young people, when they see social media, it's always bad. So when they see an officer, they just automatically expect for it to be bad. Change their perspective. Just get out there and just talk to them. It's so easy just to talk to people. Literally, it's that easy.
Nice. Good. Hey, Chief, there's a question here for you. Let me pull it up. I thought it'd be a good time since we're talking about both community departments crossing with the police and the civilians. Does your department have a proactive citizen input to help develop meaningful policy, training, and hiring, et cetera?
That's a fantastic question. We actually, so 13 months ago, the city of Vacaville, city manager, city attorney's office, decided to undertake an audit of our police department, and the report that was published by they're called the OIR group, the Office of Independent Review. They've done audits in Vallejo and a number of other Bay Area cities. Was actually presented to the city council last night, and that was one of the things that was discussed. And our city council, because Vacaville, I mean, it's 103,000 residents, which, depending on where you are, sounds either like a lot or a little. In Southern California, it's like it's a small town. In pretty much anywhere else in America, it's a lot of people. And so our city council, does take a very active role in providing oversight to the activities of the police department, especially in the closed session city council meetings. That being said, us not having a formal oversight body in the city of Vacaville, it's I've been chief for just shy of a year. And one of my biggest priorities when I came into this job was community engagement, connection to the community, stop talking, start listening, and understanding what the needs of this community are, especially because we've grown so much in over the last 10 to 15 years. Is creating an advisory committee. So I've been working with Johnny Con George from Tri-City NAACP. One of the members, Miss Bailey, who is just an absolute gem. She volunteered to help assist us with giving an outside perspective on recruitment and hiring, and how we can better recruit towards those communities that are underrepresented in the Vacaville Police Department, communities of color specifically. And so my goal, and I've shared this with the city manager, Aaron Bush, now that this audit has come out, and we have a number of recommendations that we're going to put forth related to transparency and our processes with misconduct and internal reviews of different circumstances. In addition to that, I would like to create basically an advisory board that I can touch base with on a monthly basis. That's a cross section of the city of Vacaville, of our community, because it's become much more diverse than it was even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so to be able to, connect with people that live in this city that have moved, to Vacaville because they recognize the good quality of life and that it's a safe community for, relative to its size, the crime rate's fairly low. But we need to, the paradigm of policing is changing, and it has changed dramatically in the last 2 to 3 years. And we need to find out from our community what they expect from us as their police entity, as their guardians, so to speak. Our job is to be the sheepdogs that take care of the flock, and every member of the city of Vacaville is a member of our flock. So I'm looking at creating that advisory committee. I don't know exactly what the constitution of that's going to be, but I look at it like the more the merrier. The more input I have, the more diverse perspectives that I have, the better. So that's to come. Coming up on, like I said, coming up on year one. So now that I've kind of got my feet a little bit underneath me, it's full steam ahead with these initiatives. So
awesome. I know from a fraternity standpoint, we also have a community policing program. I think that'll be a nice tie-in. I know one of the panelists, not one of the panelists, sorry, one of the guests on the call is Brother Dennis Martinez, 35-year plus veteran of CHP and former district representative. And I know he's eagerly listening to see in terms of what we want to do here at Theta Pi and supporting not just you, but also supporting the fraternities community policing programs. So I think that'll be a good tie-in. Brother Bossless, I hope you're listening to that. That's something, another committee we need to make sure we shore up. I didn't get it done when I was in. Okay, let's get this thing cracking a little better now. I got a really touchy subject I'm going to hit on, and this is open for the group. What is your position on qualified immunity regarding police officers? And again, we don't want to get anybody in trouble if this is a troublesome, but just some pros, cons, your thoughts, for the folks that are listening. Who wants to jump in on that one? I wrote that one as open. I also put touchy on the front end of it. Do we want to give a quick definition of qualified immunity?
I can share a little bit, Mr. Barnes, if
sure.
So I mean, this is a very personal kind of take on what qualified immunity, the intent of qualified immunity has been in the past, what it is currently, and potentially what it looks like moving forward.
Yeah, because there's a lot of misinformation, I think, out there about it, and it means different things to different people. So that's why
absolutely, absolutely. And I'll just say this up front: I am in no way, shape, or form an attorney. Got a couple degrees from Sac State. Stingers up, go Hornets! But not an attorney whatsoever. But I will say the idea of qualified immunity, as it became a legal concept, was as case law was being developed, as cases were working themselves through the courts up to and including the U.S. Supreme Court. There were changes in the law, and what was considered legal or right at one point might be different based on a case law decision that happens tomorrow. So the idea of qualified immunity is, should an officer have known, and it goes a lot of concepts related to use of force and other aspects are all tied into reasonableness. Would a reasonable officer who had the same amount of training and experience have looked at this same situation and realized that it was, that it was constitutionally unlawful to take the action that they took? And if that's not established, if it's determined by whatever court may be involved, that that this has not been really established law, then qualified immunity applies. It basically is it's almost like a one-time pass for, right. This law has changed. Everyone should know that. Maybe there hasn't been enough time that's gone by. That's that you've been made aware of that law, but that's it. Now that that's been established, qualified immunity has been administered in this particular case, and that's it in terms of moving forward. And to be very frank, it's sometimes I feel it's been abused by some jurisdictions. Mm-hmm. In that they've applied qualified immunity in cases that, again, this is opinion, but in cases that should have really been kind of clear-cut case law.
Right.
But they, for whatever reason, the court would rule in one direction or another and apply qualified immunity, and the case would go from there. SB 2. So Senate Bill 2 by Senator Bradford came into law this past January, so January of 2022. It had a large component related to qualified immunity that did not end up moving forward with the legislation. The legislation passed, and it's essentially now known as the decertification law in California, to where, you know, we were able to look at police officers' conduct and decertify them from being able to, you know, be fired from one agency and then go work for another. And there was a big qualified immunity portion attached to that bill, but that did not end up going through. So it's definitely a very contemporary topic. I would not be surprised if in the next legislative session there isn't something that's you know, related to qualified immunity. So it's definitely something that, you know, to keep an eye on.
Great, thank you for that. Does anyone else want to comment on qualified immunity? You're gonna let the chief have it by himself. Okay, all right, chief. Good, thank you, chief. Hey, I do have another, again, we're kind of staying with some things that are front of mind as we see things. There's been a lot of talk about, you know, police encounters and coming to find out that person has a mental illness. I want to kind of go in two directions with this. First, are you often notified ahead of time, this is for all the officers, that a person may be experiencing a mental illness when you receive a call? And if so, what other resources do you have at your disposal to kind of assist you either while you're getting there, or, you know, to kind of get there as quickly as possible? Just want to kind of, let's talk around that thread of mental illness real quick.
And you have a hand, Brother Barnes.
Hey, okay, Officer Fuller, you want to go back to qualified immunity, or are we going with mental illness?
I'll let the chief take the qualified immunity.
Well, yeah, okay, chief got it. Okay.
And I will speak on the mental illness, specifically in San Francisco, right? We have a extremely large homeless population, and my partner and I talk about it all the time. Are a lot of the calls mental illness, or is it mental illness due to drug use? Sometimes we'll go to a call where it may not state that it's mental illness, but we can kind of read in between the lines. Say if we're going to a well-being check and it says the subject's acting erratically, or they're trying to fight everyone, or they're saying that they can see people that no one else can see, right? Sometimes we have to obviously go into that situation expecting or reasonably assuming that it may be mental illness.
Right.
But at the same time, above all, it comes down to officer safety, right? Because if we're not safe or something happens to us and we're incapacitated, then we're unable to help anyone else. And so, whereas we get there, and I think it's a point to mention that no force looks nice, right? Obviously, if officer has to put their hands on someone, it's not going to look nice whether that person is being hurt or not.
Right.
And so if we have to help this person, whether it be us restraining them to be able to let the medics help them, because I think also something the public may not be educated on is that EMS personnel will not come to our calls unless the scene is deemed safe. So if we're not able to restrain this person in order to get them help, medical help, then we're unable to make all parties involved safe, right? So sometimes when it is mental illness, we do have to put our hands on people in order to achieve an overall outcome of helping that person. And sometimes the family calls, sometimes the public calls, it can come from anyone, right? And I think it's important to know that officers, a lot of times when we're going hands-on with someone who is mentally ill, it's not because they're in trouble or that we're trying to punish them, is because that person is not in their right state of mind at that time to help themselves. And the only way we can get them help is to be able to put our hands on them, to be able to get them somewhere where they can either get medication or get a doctor or get help.
Great, thank you. All right, so let me do this real quick. I would like to introduce another panelist who joined us. He was having technical difficulties, but he made it in. And this is, I'm gonna call it Brother Director Robert Clark, representing the Department of Public Safety from Columbus, Ohio. Welcome, Brother Clark. And I see you jump right in. You got your hand up. Are you going to talk about qualified immunity, or are we going back to mental illness? Where are you at?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for me to talk about mental illness, Brother Barnes, and
Okay.
thank you for the opportunity. Good evening,
Sure.
everyone. Good evening, brothers. It's a pleasure to be with you. And they say technology is great until technology doesn't work. So just happy to be with you. Let me share with you what we're doing in Columbus. We started what's called the Right Response Unit. This is where we actually have licensed social workers and others who are qualified to engage mental health callers in our call center, and they are able to immediately evaluate what's going on with that person and then offer them what I said, the right response. Do they need police officers? Do they need mental health intervention? And we have seen that this has reduced our use of force incidents in double digits. It's also reduced the number of calls that our police officers have to respond to and then be in a position where they are not qualified, certified, or equipped to deal with mental health issues. So this is something that is very innovative for us here in Columbus. We just recently went to a 16-hour shift. It started as a 4-hour as a pilot project, and we saw tremendous success with that. I look at the statistics on that every single day on how many mental health related calls that we get in the call center. And we're doing a phenomenal job with that. And all our mental health professionals who are dealing with these calls way back upstream before police officers will be dispatched to the scene or mental health professionals will be dispatched to the scene is having tremendous success. As a matter of fact, we've been contacted by a variety of cities around the country who want to see how Columbus has put this together. So we're very proud of this program. It's called the Right Response Unit.
You may get some calls tonight. That's good to hear. Yeah, well, thank you and welcome. And if you don't mind, just kind of you want to share with us how long you've been in your role and
Sure, brother. Be happy to. I've been the director of public safety in the city of Columbus going on 14 months now. I served as assistant special agent in charge with the FBI for 22 years. 12 of those years I spent right here in Los Angeles, California, where I find myself this evening. I started out as a Youngstown police officer way back in 1986. So you add up all the years, it's about 36 years. I had the opportunity to go to Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean and serve as a senior superintendent down there for 3 years. So I've had a tremendous career and just tremendous blessing. But again, I always like to say that I started out as a kid on the south side of Youngstown and was raised in foster care for 8 years. So I have a tremendous passion for serving our disadvantaged youth and community and engaging with our kids, and because I know how they feel, because I was one of those kids many, many years ago. I just am blessed to be able to continue to serve, and I'm just so happy to be here this evening. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties I had getting on. As a matter of fact, my dean is online with us today, Brother Daryl Harris. He invited me to this.
Awesome.
I came over in 2016, 316 Row Iota, Long Beach, California.
Oh, nice to have you. Nice to have you. All right, staying with we're kind of hitting some third rail issues here. I got another one. This one actually came in through the question and answer. This is and then again, this is kind of open to everyone. Again, speaking about things that are often mischaracterized in the media, we're going to go with defund the police. And do you think reorganization or redistribution of funds are viable approaches to improving policing? And again, open forum, anyone could take that question. Anybody want to? Nobody wants to take that one?
I'll go.
Go, Chief.
You know what? Just as Director Clark was talking about when it comes to mental illness and what Officer Fuller was talking about, there's a big desire nationwide for law enforcement to be removed from those types of incidents, and we fully understand, the reasons why. The fact that we show up oftentimes in uniform in and of itself can escalate somebody that's having a mental health episode. And so we recognize that specifically in our jurisdiction. And so what we did is we're very unique in our community. We have what's called our first unit, our Family Investigative Response Services team, and they have a whole clinical services division. And for a city of 100,000 people, it's not common to have a full-on division of mental health clinicians at your disposal. So we looked at shifting some funding from from operations or from our general fund budget allocation to those kind of resources that are able to sort of interject in the community the mental health connection that we so desperately need. It's a really tenuous kind of circumstance now. We have a county protocol, or we have a county program that unfortunately, because of staffing, has had to be put on hiatus. But it was a mobile crisis unit that would come out, and if there were circumstances where somebody wasn't actively armed or wanting to hurt somebody or hurt themselves in a significant way, that unit would respond, and there wouldn't be a uniform in sight, and that oftentimes would lead to better outcomes for that particular individual. So we were able to to kind of share some funding countywide with the 7 different cities that comprise Solano County, and we're a small county. We're less than 500,000. And so that was one thing we looked at, which was yes, I mean, there are aspects of policing that we should take funding from and put towards other types of programs in relation to sort of the, not necessarily the defunding, but the depolicing of some of the police departments. We've seen that to a certain degree in the Bay Area, where certain cities have, for all intents and purposes, kind of just given up. And if there's crime that's being committed, unless it's something significant, they just won't get involved. And that has ties to the district attorney's office and whether or not they're charging cases. That has ties to the sheriff's department and whether or not they're actually booking people into jail or releasing them and whatnot. So it's a very, very complicated issue. But I would say, at least from the conversations that I've had with a number of my colleagues, and I was fortunate enough to go to the International Association of Chiefs of Police in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. For the most part, that, other than a few really sort of high profile cities, that defund did not really equate to a significant reduction in funding for police services. There were some changes, some movements within the internal budget of those particular communities, but I think there are opportunities for us to take the funding that we have, and if we're able to put it into a program or a circumstance that allows a better outcome for our community, that doesn't necessarily have to involve a badge and a gun. Let's go for it.
Absolutely. Real quick, Brother Director Clark, is your hand up? You got something you want to add?
Yeah, I just I could not agree more with the chief. Let me just be very transparent with you and share with you. We just finished finalizing the city budget in the city of Columbus. It's about $1.2 billion, and $710 million of that is in public safety, which I'm responsible for. And what I found over the last several years, as this defunding the police conversation caught fire during the George Floyd protest and all the things that we've experienced across the country, is that most of our residents just don't understand how police are funded, and understanding that a lot of that money is either contractually mandated or charter mandated. We're going to have to pay salaries and benefits. We're going to have to keep the lights on in police stations and all the other things that we have to do. It required us, I think, across the board in law enforcement to have a much more engaging and transparent conversation with the community. And at the end of the day, in all the conversations that I've had over the last several years, no one ever said that they wanted to feel less safe in their community because we had less police officers working. They want more police. They want to feel safer. So I thought it was an opportunity for us to really make sure that we define words, define terms, and that people understood where the money was going and what it was used for. And again, I agree with the chief that it also provided us an opportunity to strategize in a way that we could bring some holistic application to the field of policing. And it has proven to work, whether it's from community policing or community liaison officers or the right response unit or mental health engagement or more engagement in schools, more engagement in community centers, whatever it was, it required us to have a conversation with our residents and the people that we serve every day. And we are now seeing a shift back towards refunding the police, and cities like New York City and other cities across the country have now replaced the money that was taken out of police just simply because crime went up and people didn't feel as safe. They had a lot more fear of crime. And again, it provided us with the opportunity to have a conversation. And I think that's where the real success has come in at. Not that we took dollars and cents and put it in or took it out or whatever the case may be, but it put us in a position where we realized we had to be more substantively engaged with our communities.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for that. And great discussion. Does anyone else want to add to that? All right, we're getting close to the end. I got one question that was very interesting I wanted to ask. And this is actually more so, Chief, I don't think you have to answer this one, and Brother Clark, I don't think you will either. But I know Officer Starks, Officer Fuller, Officer Jefferson, I'm letting you all know this one's coming your way, and Officer Dorsey and Officer Romero. It's a simple question. We all like. I'm a fan of Adam 12. I watch it almost every day at 5 o'clock on MeTV here, and you always see them with how they start their shift. So the question is, what does a normal shift look like for you guys? Okay, Officer Fuller, I saw your hand up. First hand.
That's hilarious because I truly don't believe there's any such thing as a normal shift. But if there were a normal shift, it would start off as obviously going to our lineup, getting our briefing from our lieutenant, where she would then tell us any important updates as far as any crimes that happen, any vehicles that we should obviously look out for, whether they were involved in a shooting, mostly officer safety things, right? And then from there, we would go and get some of our tools that we need for the night, such as our less lethal weapons, other weapons that we might need, our patrol vehicles, our bags. And then from there, we obviously, if we have time, we'll go and get coffee and then kind of patrol. And San Francisco happens to be a bit busier, and specifically where my partner, Officer Starks and I work, it's extremely busy. And so we usually have to just go straight into work. And other nights, right, there might come out, a call might come out where you don't even have time to go to line up because it might be a shooting or a stabbing and you just have to leave out of the station right away. And so sometimes you get to kind of, quote, ease into your shift. And then other times you just have to go grab a car and head out straight to your shift and just go kind of where the night takes you.
Got it. Excellent. Nice. So my Adam 12 thing is kind of like fantasy land, right?
A little, but I don't mind it.
Officer Starks, you gonna say something?
Yeah, and first, I do want to mention what Director Clark was talking about with budgets, just quickly to go back to that. In San Francisco, if I'm correct, I think we have a similar police budget, which I think is around 700 million, but we have a city budget of 12 billion. So when it comes to defunding, I think it's city by city. We are short-staffed. We are short on resources. We are the last city you need to defund on the police. I mean, we work, as my partner said, Officer Fuller, a typical day. We start with 40 calls for service that have been waiting for hours. Some of them have been waiting for hours. We prioritize them by A, B, and C. We can't get to everybody. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough staff. And so our job is just take one call at a time, get to what we can get to, and then knock down the board. That's our typical day. And we work the night shift. We're actually going to start here in a couple hours. And that's what we do all night long, just trying to manage all our calls for service and then handle things as they arise. Like we have shootings, we have stabbings. This is a normal night for us. And so just to wrap it back around to the defund, not saying that departments don't need reform, absolutely, but you have to balance community safety. What do you need to keep your community safe? And right now, I can tell you, San Francisco, we need more money. We need more staff.
Yeah,
so that's where I'm at with that. But
great, thank you.
Talk about you didn't answer how we start a typical shift and a not typical shift.
It's always go, go, go. Not typical. If we do have any downtime, we're on patrol. We're trying to, stop crime from happening because it's a rat race. Criminals are out there. They're especially out there at night. Like converter thieves, retail thieves. We're bouncing back and forth, trying to stop crime from happening, trying to, help victims, in our community. But if ever we have a downtime, I'm sure we're writing reports. Then we have time for traffic enforcement. I mean, I don't think there's ever a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
Let's go.
All right. Hey, Officer Jefferson, how about you?
I think Officer Fuller and Stark said everything. the only thing that I can add is because I'm a religious guy. Before my shift, I always pray the safety for me and my partners. That's about it. Everything that they're said is 100% dead on.
So city is agnostic. It's the same where you are too, huh?
Yeah.
Good. Let's see. How about Deputies Dorsey and Romero? I think you guys. I see Officer. All right. Okay, Brother Raspberry.
Yes, Brother Barnes. As everyone know, back in I think it was 2002, the city of Vallejo filed for bankruptcy. And that was a really big slice out of the pie for all the departments in the city of Vallejo, including police department. We lost several benefits regarding medical, regarding retirement, regarding all sorts of programs that had developed. Matter of fact, my substation closed right after I left because I retired in 2001. And right after that, the city filed for bankruptcy, and they still haven't come out of it yet, as a matter of fact. Because Vallejo had one of the top salaries in the Bay Area for police officers. Now they are at the bottom of the scale regarding salaries, stuff like that.
Like there was a freeze or something?
Yeah. And so it has really taken a toll on the city itself as well, and more so for the police department, because like I said before, people have left, went to other departments that were paying more, benefits were better, and the Officer Starks, Officer Fuller, those they're doing it right. I had the same thing as a typical officer and subsequent a sergeant. Okay, you get your briefing, you go check your equipment, get your make sure your shotgun is racked and hey, off you go. And weekends in Vallejo, Saturday, New Year's, you go from call to call. You did not have a break at all. And if you did have a break, you have to catch up on your reports because you
That's
don't
right.
want to spend overtime in the station writing reports. The sergeant won't allow you to do that. So, but
Yeah, look, and we remember you just had a tablet and a pen and pad, no computer.
yeah, that was it. Matter of fact, I couldn't even type. And it was like when the computers came in, as I was leaving, when the computers came in, I was thinking, I says, now how can I drive a patrol car with the left hand and type the computers in the right hand? And surveys have said that the events of police car vehicle crashes went up at that time. I mean, people were wrecking cars all over the place. And so I don't know what maybe the rules were at that time. Probably just, hey, stop and do
Type.
do your reports later. But no, that budgeting for a police department is a nightmare, especially for the chiefs, city manager, and the mayor. And you have to not pick and choose, but you have to put the money, what money is left over, into those programs that are beneficial for the citizens first, and then the units or the departments. So it's a sort of a two-way street. You know, if money's not there, it's not there. And,
Right.
And Vallejo, one of the few cities that I know of that had to declare bankruptcy and took a toll, and is still in that situation right now.
Got it. Thank you there. Hey, we're getting close to wrap here, and what I'm going to do is kind of take a point of personal privilege here and just kind of open it up. Do we have any final comments anyone on the panel wants to make, and or anything that you want to talk about that we didn't cover within the question and answers that we were afforded? So I'll do that, and then we'll move towards closing.
Brother Barnes, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
You know, a couple of years ago when we've been talking about police reform, you could talk to 100 people and you would get 100 different responses. And I was intimately involved in some work with IHQ and some other community organizations and talking about police reform. And we actually transitioned the conversation from police reform to policing reform. How we police, how we staff, how we recruit, how we hire, how we promote. And that was a more substantive conversation to have with the community, because they had a lot of innovative ideas on how we could have policing reform as opposed to police reform. And again, no one has still been able to define what is police reform. And if you're talking about the things I just mentioned, then you're ultimately talking about policing, and just recognizing that there's power in words and power in the definitions of words. And it gave us somewhere to go and something to talk about and some things to work on. So I would just continue to encourage having that kind of conversation about policing reform, the things we're doing, the strategies we're using, the things we prioritize, the things we fund, the things we don't fund, how we're recruiting, where are we recruiting in the communities, and making sure that we are bringing professionals into the profession who have an investment in their community and ultimately an investment in the residents that they don't then go out away from the city and don't really have an investment. Those are the policing conversations that we can have, rather than just having this sort of big thing that we talk about, police reform, which ultimately leads to nowhere.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, education to the masses seems to be the correct way to go, because again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you know, again, everybody kind of get their cues on certain words versus understanding the whole context of what needs to be done. So that's a great point. Anyone else want to final comments? Anything you want to share? All right, thank you. hey, I guess that's close. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of take another point of personal privilege here. First, I do want to say thank you to all the panelists. You guys were awesome. Chief, Brother Raspberry, Officer Jefferson, Starks, Fuller, Deputies Dorsey and Romero, Brother Clark. I'll make sure I get everybody. I think I got everybody on the panel. I'm not talking about my chapter brothers. I'll see you all. But hey, it's been great. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the honest answers in providing. We really will take what all of you have said, share it with our families and loved ones and people we know, because I think again, getting these answers from the sources versus kind of getting it, from all the stuff that's out there on the internet is a lot better to do it that way. So I thank all of you. So at this time, we're going to move to close. I'm going to turn it over to our bossless president, Brother Paul Davis, for closing remarks. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brother Barnes. You kind of really summed it up. I really want to thank all of our panelists for sharing valuable information and education to us and our listeners. Please, let's continue to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. We hope to see everyone, at our next annual forum. Thank you and God bless from Theta Pi chapter, Vallejo, California. Thank you again.
All right.
Brother Higgs, there you go.
Yes, thank you, Brother Basilis. And I'm really elated as to how this event has turned out. You all have been thanked many times, and I want to thank you again because I think all too often as citizens, we're apprehensive about law enforcement. We're apprehensive about having communication with law enforcement. It's just not a very comfortable thing. Who wants to talk to the police, right? But at the same token, I think we have a mutual responsibility to make sure that we can speak with one another outside of a stressful or some other type of event that you're not being called to. So it's my hope and my wish that the people that have been able to tune in have received answers to some of the questions that they've wanted to ask, maybe they've been thinking about, and that it can hopefully, have an impact on their ability to have positive interaction with law enforcement. So again, we thank you all for your time, for attending. We thank those of you who've taken the time out of your schedule to watch, view, and participate. And again, we look forward to seeing you all again, same time next year.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.